Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Source Material Comics Podcast. That's right. We have returned. It's me and Mark Radulich bringing a trio of comics your way. I think we discovered this theme in the middle of a show, if I remember correctly. Matthew Rosenberg did Hawkeye, and we hopped on to the wiki to find out that he did a crossover comic that sent you on a road.
I went down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, to find other crossover comics. And that's what led to this. The theme is crossovers. Hey, I'm all about it. I love it. I love the idea. Mark Radulich, you ready to talk some crossovers?
I am, Jesse Starcher. Let's do it.
Okay, so the first one we're going to get into tonight. Did I suggest this one, or did you throw this one out there?
Here's what happened there. I was in a bookstore. And you know me, I like the self-contained stories, and I like things that are off the beaten path. I'm flipping through the books, and I'm trying to see like what's there. And I see Power Rangers Godzilla, and I'm like, all right, well, this meets two of my criteria. One, this is one I can talk about with Jesse. Two, this is a really funny concept to me. Yeah, the idea of the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers and Godzilla. You know, the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, much like Voltron, known for fighting, and Pacific Rim, big giant robots that fight, kaiju monsters. And
Yes.
and they did exactly what I wanted them to do with it, because like with Godzilla, it's always the same thing. It's like, oh no, giant dinosaur lizard with laser beams, and it's like, oh, he's friendly. See, he's protecting us from the 3-headed dragon that's killing everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole thing. So, and I think we were going to do Joker Mask. And I was like, no, let's kill Archie. You picked Archie Ramones. I picked Elvira Vincent Price. And then we both agreed on Joker Mask. And then I dumped Joker Mask. I'm like, let's do Power Rangers Godzilla instead, because I just bought this from the bookstore. I thought it would be a fun one for us to kick around. Like, none of these are going to be high concept, long conversations. But all three, there was some fun to be had with the crossover.
This is perfect for the Power Rangers.
Yes.
To fight this large kaiju monster. The Power Rangers, I know that it's based off of Super Sentai, which again takes elements from the Godzilla films. You could see that they're clearly influenced by it. So this to me felt perfect. I was like, there are some crossovers out there where two properties come together and you're like, why in the hell is this happening? Right. This is not one of them. This is one that feels like, oh, this should be right at home for these two properties to be interacting. Before we get into the story, I just kind of want to gauge your history with Godzilla first. We'll start with Godzilla, because Godzilla's been around for quite a while. I wasn't going to the theaters. I wasn't watching anything aside from, was it 1998's Godzilla with Matthew Broderick? Was it 97, maybe 97?
You beat me to the punch, because I wasn't like a Toho Godzilla guy.
Same.
I was not really a Godzilla person growing up. I was I mean, I would come to monster movies later, and I would come to appreciate a lot of the stuff later. But like when you talk about the Godzilla fan base, like these people, they watch all the movies from Japan and read the comics, and like they were like, Godzilla was a thing of their youth. It really wasn't for me, as much as I enjoy giant fuck all monsters. For some odd reason, like I recognized Godzilla was part of the cultural fabric, but it was kind of whatever. It was okay. Really, the first Godzilla movie I ever watched was the Matthew Broderick one. And I remember thinking to myself, like, this is fun. I like this concept. And I like Godzilla purists were like, are you crazy? This is fucking sacrilege.
Oh, man.
Oh, my God. People were pissed.
They hated it.
Yeah, they were not happy with that movie. And like I get like knowing what I know now about Godzilla after kind of going back and researching and talking to people, like I get why people were pissed about it at the time. Not my Godzilla hashtag. Yeah, I understand now why like this. You and I were talking in a previous recording about sometimes they just like have a movie script and they throw a familiar title on there because they want to sell the movie or whatever. But no one's gonna go see Shmagegi the movie. They'll see Godzilla. Again, Godzilla name only. It felt more like a Jurassic World movie than it did a Godzilla in many ways.
Right.
But that was the first one I saw, and I actually, like I said, fucking kill me, people. Like I enjoyed it. I thought Godzilla 1998 was a pretty fun movie for the most part. And years later, I want to say it was like me, you, Alexis, and like my kids did a commentary track for it when one of the Godzilla movies came out. I don't remember which one now. That's kind of it. I've had an appreciation for Godzilla recently with the most recent spate of MonsterVerse movies. Godzilla 2014, Kong, Skull Island.
Yeah.
Yeah. and then Godzilla King of the Monsters, and then finally Godzilla versus Kong was like my favorite movie of that year. Like, man, you get two giant monsters just wrecking cities and fight and punch each other in the mush. Mark is a very happy boy.
Oh yeah.
So that is what I have come to appreciate about Godzilla, is the most recent movies, and understanding that Godzilla is this force of nature that protects us from the other monsters. It's like the monster with a conscience. Like, yes, Godzilla is a destructive force, but he's here to stand between us and the truly menacing, truly destructive. And I find that fascinating as a concept.
I'm very much just like you. I knew about the Godzilla films. I probably caught them on, like I said, the USA Network, TBS, or something along those lines, in between flipping through the channels on a Saturday afternoon. But I never sought out or looked for the original movie or anything that happened afterwards. I knew that there was I want to say it was the 1985, maybe it was earlier than that, Godzilla versus Kong. I know that there was a Godzilla versus Kong originally, like in the 60s, I want to say.
You, me, and Robert watched that and did a commentary track for it.
I can tell you Justin Thomas may have been involved as well, possibly, because Justin Thomas, good friend of the show, huge, massive Godzilla fan. And of course, I could go to him and say, okay, actually, I could probably go to him about both of these properties and say, tell me something about them. And he would have an hour for each. He's very knowledgeable when it comes to the Godzilla films and what's happened in them. As a kid, what are your options here? You're essentially going to watch these films possibly when they're on cable. But it was a property I thought that was neat. But, as I finally started getting money, that wasn't something that I was into to try and find movies for. So let's talk about Power Rangers then.
Oh, my God.
I feel like you and I may be in the same boat. I don't know. You're a little bit older than I am, so I can remember what was happening on Saturday mornings on Fox.
So I watched the first iteration of Power Rangers. Okay. There's a period between probably like 8th and 10th grade where I'm watching more adult stuff, but I'm still kind of hanging on to youthful entertainment. So like there's a period where I'm watching more adult-oriented content, but I'm also watching like Animaniacs, and I'm watching Tiny Toons, and I'm watching Pinky and the Brain. A lot of stuff that was on like Fox at the time, especially like after school, I would watch. And I'm going to tell you, I don't remember loving Power Rangers. I thought it was the goofiest fucking thing ever. But it was one of those where it was on in between stuff I liked, because I'm pretty sure this was also around the time of Batman the Animated Series, which everyone loves, and it's like everyone's Batman. The Further Adventures of Superman, from the Timberverse stuff, which I realized might have been another channel. But my point being that whatever it was I was watching after school, when I got home from high school, when I got home from junior high, if there was a block of TV, I kind of just stayed on whatever channel I was on and watched through the block. And part of the block was Power Rangers. And I remember Rita Repulsa being hilariously over the top and silly. Yeah. And, I remember everyone doing the hi-ya to get ready for a fight. Like, oh no, monsters, and and they would like, hi, and they would get in their fighting stance. I remember it was a lot of, I remember the goofy robot, and then it was the first 5, it was the pink, the yellow, the black, the blue, and I think the Red Ranger. And then they introduced the Green Ranger, and the Green Ranger became the White Ranger, and he was dreamy. And I also remember all the boys being horny for the Pink Ranger, because why wouldn't you? She was a gorgeous girl. So, I remember that much of it. I'm probably just slightly out of the window where Power Rangers would have been truly appealing. Coming up behind me, that generation, maybe a little closer to you. We're not that far apart, but I think you were more in the window than I was. And then definitely coming behind that, like little kids just thought Power Rangers were the bees.
Oh yeah.
My God. And then like much like Voltron and Robotech, there were 97 iterations of the Power Rangers, to the point where not that long ago, it was a couple of years ago, my son, who's now 9, so he had to probably be like 7 at the time, dressed as one of the Power Rangers. And like combiners and Transformers or Voltron or anything else, there's always a new version. It's either vehicles or animals or dinosaurs or whatever. But it was always the same thing. Colorful outfits, little daggers that turn into swords, giant fuck all robots that turn into bigger robots.
Yes.
And again, Power Rangers was very much like the same concept of Voltron. Wizards sending kaiju to fuck shit up, and then the Power Rangers had to fight the kaiju over and over and over again. That was it. That was Power Rangers. So it's funny that I bought this book because, like, again, I wasn't a huge fan of Power Rangers, but I did like Voltron growing up. That was more my thing. But I do like the whole concept. Like, again, Pacific Rim is up there with like my top 50 movies because I just love the idea of like giant robots versus giant monsters. And so I'm in the bookstore and I see Power Rangers. Like, Power Rangers is not my favorite thing, but I do like this idea of like giant a giant robot fighting Godzilla and what fun that would be. So that's where we landed here with this book.
I love it. Yeah. I wanted to see here. I tie Power Rangers with X-Men because I was watching the X-Men animated series in '92, and this was the point you and I have talked in the past, and I've kind of told you about. There was pretty much a blank spot between '93, probably '96, where I didn't really have access to cable, but I could watch Fox, I could watch NBC. ABC came in on a clear day, CBS. So I had all the bunny ear channels, but I remember watching the X-Men cartoon, and for some reason, this tied into that for me. And I would never watch Power Rangers, and I was just like you. This is goofy, this is silly, but man, you're right. It had an incredible fan base. So I've come to learn a lot about the Power Rangers. Definitely within the last 5 or 10 years of my life, because I've done a few comics about them on here. I remember Alexis and I discussing Nightmare on Elm Street, basically Freddy versus the Power Rangers.
I remember that.
Great independent comic, which, I mean, it's completely free. But yeah,
it was like a web comic, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a web comic, and it still isn't finished to this day. And I had, as I was reading this, I was like, man, I really wish they would finish that, because this kind of brought me back to that Power Rangers, crossover world. But yeah, I mean, so I knew this was a thing, and it had a massive fan base. I go on to say that I did remember renting the video of the first movie that came out. I want to say it was 95, maybe 96 or something along those lines, because I was like, oh, it's going to be a movie. I had to at least check it out. And I watched it, and I didn't hate it, but definitely there are plenty more people out there that know more about this series than I do. So the good thing is you don't need to know everything into this comic. You just need to know Godzilla is a massive monster. The Power Rangers are here to, I don't know, try and use their Megazords to take care of the monster threat. It's pretty good in that effect. So just real quick, our creative team, Cullen Bunn, wrote this, and and I have talked. Yeah,
I was gonna say I've been dying for you to talk about Cullen Bunn, because I feel like we've covered a lot of Cullen Bunn, or at least you have. Yeah. I've been in and out of it.
Well, I can't remember. You may have been part of the massive crossover IDW did with all those properties called Revolution.
Yeah, we did that. We did that on source material. That was what
right.
That came like highly recommended by like Hol Marentet, if I remember correctly.
Right. I mean, you had the Transformers in there. I wish I could remember all of the
G.I. Joe, Rom the Space Knight.
Rom the Space Knight. Yeah.
I think like Micronauts.
Possibly. Cullen Bunn is not a stranger to taking properties and crossing them over. The other one that I did on here that I remember, I think it was my second or third episode, was Deadpool Illustrated, which essentially Deadpool kills the Marvel Universe. What's left? I don't know. Let's kill the literary universe. And he goes on to destroy Moby Dick. He destroys Sherlock. And Sherlock Holmes is chasing him. It's great. So Cullen Bunn's, kind of done a few stories here, taking two properties and mashing them together to see what great story can come out of it. And he's done fairly decent. I didn't mind Revolution. There are some people that didn't really like it, but I thought it was okay.
It's a very busy book.
You got a lot of shit that has to happen in there. A lot of people got to get their shit in. I mean, my gosh. Well, let me go ahead. I'll jump into the synopsis here. Sit back, grab yourself a Mai Tai. I'm going to go through the whole thing and try and make it as quick as possible. So, okay, in our first two issues, we begin with Rita Repulsa and her minions infiltrating a temple in search of a powerful gem. The Green Ranger Tommy follows them. Rita activates the gem, intending to escape to a new universe without Power Rangers in order to conquer it. Activating the gem, they arrive in a new dimension. However, they find Angel Grove, the home of the Power Rangers, under attack and almost, I would say, pretty well destroyed.
I got a question. Did you have ChatGPT write your synopsis?
Yes, I did. And
Nice.
I got in there and I did a little massaging. The girlfriend likes that. Massaged it up a little bit. So they find Angel Grove under attack by two monsters, one of which is obviously Godzilla. The other one's probably a monster. They don't name it, but I'm sure it's something that Justin Thomas will let me know who it is. But not only that, we get these two monsters attacking each other. There's also these UFOs flying overhead, which is definitely, I'm sure that's out of a Godzilla movie, because I recognize some of these. So Rita's team sees these UFOs and transports her team up there onto like this mothership, and they meet Supreme Controller of Planet X. That's who's leading these UFOs. Rita seeks to add Godzilla to her monster army, but the Supreme Controller says, I don't know about that. Not too many people, even us, cannot subdue Godzilla. We've been trying for a little while and it's not working. Meanwhile, the other Power Rangers search for Tommy and are sent by Zordon to the other dimension to assist him as he battles Godzilla with the Dragon Zord. So in order to help out, they transform into the Megazord, and in order to confront Godzilla, Tommy, though, is captured by Goldar and taken to Rita. The Rangers used a power sword against Godzilla, leading to an intense battle, which looks like both of them killing each other, essentially. I mean, Godzilla gets stabbed with the sword, and Megazord gets blasted. Now, Rita sees these two competitors down and convinces the Supreme Controller of Planet X and his Zalians, by the way. I'm just going to call them that. Instead of an A, they have an X in front of their name. So Zalians. But anyway, she convinces them to attack both Godzilla and Megazord while they're down, but Godzilla fights back and retreats to the sea. The Rangers deactivate the Megazord and begin to search for Tommy again, and realize he's on the mothership, and they are able to make their way up there and confront the Zalians for short. But the Zalians, they decide to unleash Gigan, that is a common foe of Godzilla, onto Angel Grove, forcing the Rangers to use the Dinozords to jump off the ship and go face this new threat, leaving Tommy behind. Now, in our third issue, Rita intensifies her spell to try to control Tommy, but he resists her. She explains that she plans to control all the monsters of this reality and her own, and return to her own reality and take it over. Now, as the Megazord faces overwhelming odds, Godzilla returns to the battle. Okay, the Megazord was there fighting Gigan. Godzilla's like, okay, I'm jumping in. And in order to boost Godzilla's strength, the Rangers feed him energy from the Megazord's power sword. Together, Godzilla and Megazord fight the other three enemies, which I think at this time it was Gigan, and I want to say it was Goldar and Scorpina, or whatever her name was, Scorpina. Anyway, Scorponok. Yeah, Scorponok from the Transformers shows up. You guys were not expecting this.
It's a headmaster, baby.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. Rita sends Scorpina to join the battle, so she wasn't in here, but this makes the situation even more dire for the heroes. Now, in issue 4, Godzilla and the Megazord turn the tide of battle, and the other monsters attack Scorpina. Rita seizes control of the mothership and summons the ultimate Zalian weapon, and that is King Ghidorah, the three-headed, massive beast who shows up and begins to overwhelm Godzilla and the Megazord, draining Godzilla's energy. Tommy finally is able to escape, well, actually with the help of a Zalian who's like, I want you and Rita and everybody out of here so we can take over this world. So he gives him back the power coin, and sure enough, he seeks to save the Rangers and defeat Rita. Rita sends Goldar, Scorpina, and the other monsters to confront Ghidorah. So at this point, Ghidorah's just attacking everything, including the Zalian ship that Rita's on. So she's like, okay, all bets are off. I summon Monster Zero, Ghidorah here, and it's out of control. We need to take control. And she sends monster after monster after monster after this thing to try and take down King Ghidorah. And in the final issue, Rita's monsters and the Megazord attack Ghidorah. Tommy calls on the Dragon Zord to join the battle. Man, it's just beautiful. Godzilla emerges from the sea, grabs Ghidorah and drags it underwater. This allows the Dragon Zord and Megazord to merge. Okay, I didn't see this coming. I assume it happens, but they merge into the Mega Dragon Zord, and then they unleash this powerful blast that defeats Ghidorah with Godzilla's help. Godzilla, still pissed. Godzilla's funny. He's like, okay, we taking that. Who's the next biggest thing around here? Starts to potentially attack the Megazord, but after he gets rid of the Zalian mothership. So he knew that they were bad, gets rid of them, And as it crashes, Rita tries to return to her home dimension, but ends up fracturing the gem that brought her team there, and they become lost in reality. And the Supreme Controller's like, okay, well, let's get back to our home planet, and then Godzilla destroys him before he can leave. So the Power Rangers escape, but they anticipate Rita's return to cause trouble once again. So there you go. It's all 5 issues in one massive synopsis of what happens in Godzilla versus the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. And I'll just go ahead and start here and say that Freddie Williams II did the art on this, and Andrew Dahlhaus did the colors, and they did a fantastic job. I think this was as far as kaiju destruction goes, this was fun to watch because there was a lot of big boys doing some battle. I appreciated what was on the page. What was your thoughts, Mark?
As much as I enjoy doing doing this podcast with you and talking about these fun books, I think sometimes what frustrates me is the same issue that I've had with Alexis with certain TV shows that we've done, where it's like, yeah, this was fun.
This is what it was supposed to be.
This is exactly what I read it and I was like, I enjoyed reading this.
Yep.
I wish I had more to say. And I feel bad because it's like, I made you do this. I made you talk about this. And it's like, yeah, it's good. It's fun. There's not a lot to dig into here. Like kind of talking about the one thing that jumped out at me, the one thing where I can say like, okay, this is somewhat like grist for the mill. I like that Cullen Bunn really got what Godzilla is. And so, and it's so funny because it does deal to a degree in this idea of looks can be deceiving. Don't judge a book by its cover. You see this giant scary monster thing and like you just assume it's the bad guy. And it's like, no, it kind of reminds me of like the whole concept behind Star Trek 4, where it's just like we hunted whales into extinction, not knowing years later aliens would come looking for them and wreck the planet when they couldn't find them. So,
yeah.
What a reference, huh? But that's kind of what it reminds me of. It's just like you think Godzilla is the enemy, and it turns out no, there's an even bigger problem here. Honestly, the best part about this was Rita Repulsa. Like he nails Rita Repulsa. Like it's perfect.
Completely like just drunk with power and thinks that she can do anything that she wants. And I don't know how many times, this is one of my notes here, I don't know how many times that the Zalians are just like, hey, you understand that you can't control these monsters. I think it's like 2 or 3 times she finally gets the hint when Ghidorah starts attacking the ship. And she's like, oh, crap, we summoned this thing here. I can't get rid of it. And now I've got to try and save my own skin. But yeah, it
was a very Rita Repulsa moment.
Right. She got it.
I have all the power. I have zero control.
Mm-hmm.
It's great.
Right. One of my notes here is this is what I expected it to be. I could predict the beats of this story. This wasn't something that made you was jaw-dropping intense to where you were like, what's going to happen next? Well, I mean, some of the cliffhangers did you leave you go, okay, this is what's going to come in the next issue. We get another throwdown. But I think that was what this story was supposed to be, and I didn't hate it. I thought it was decent for what it was supposed to do. My last note on this was I have pretty much zero complaints about it. I would suggest that it's got something for any fan of the either property.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like what's good about it is what also makes it difficult to talk about. If you go into the bookstore like I did, and you're just like, I want a fun monster versus robot book, you found a good monster versus robot book, and that is what you got. It is not complicated. You talk about like, truth in advertising, and sometimes you get snookered. Nope, this is exactly what was on the marquee.
Mm-hmm. I'm a fan of the whole alternate reality, time travel, blah, blah, blah. But as they got out, as the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers got out of to help the citizens of Angel Grove to try and get them to there's a point where they're like helping them out of the destruction. And apparently there's a bunch of refugees or people survivors, I should say, that are holding up at an amusement park. I was hoping like some of the Power Rangers would kind of run into like their alternate versions of themselves or alternate versions of people that they know. Mm-hmm. And just kind of like give that, hey, we're in a similar alternate reality here, but that didn't happen. That's really the only thing that I was like, man, I kind of wish that happened. But the rest of this was like, man, this is exactly what was supposed to happen in this book. So that's all the notes I have. I don't think we have to belabor this point. Do you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
All right, there it is. All right, well, let's go ahead and we will plug some stuff.
Yes, sir. W2mnet.com is the landing page for all Rattle Engine Broadcasting related content. We do our traditional podcast. I've been doing some commentary tracks with my kids again. That's been fun. We got a little boxing in there. So occasionally Sean puts up his video game podcast. Over on our YouTube page, W2mnet on YouTube, there's a little bit more content. We've got the movies that don't suck and some that do. They do some fun movies, and a lot of times they do stuff that we don't cover. But there's also the Talk the Keki guys, and we've also got the same Talk the Keki guys also do some MMA content. So that's all on our YouTube page. I'm at Mark Rattledge on TikTok. I take the best, or at least the first 10 minutes of any show that I do, and I cut it up and I throw it on TikTok. So if you're like, I can't sit through a whole 1 to 2 hour podcast, you must be joking. Go tell that to the kids in Oakland. You want to hear some, just a portion of the podcast, go ahead and check out my TikTok. I keep it updated pretty regularly now with my content. So give that a whirl. You can also find like my concert footage, and I've been to a million concerts this year, which I need to stop doing. So I cut about a minute of any live performance that I see, and I throw those up on my TikTok, and then a bunch of, like I said, a bunch of stuff I did with my kids, and I retweet a lot of stuff about narcissism.
Oh, beautiful.
Yes.
All right.
That's what's going on in my world.
Very nice. We're going to go ahead and get out of here. That's Mark Rattledge. I'm Jesse Starcher. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. All of this would not be possible without W2mnet.com, so make sure to seek them out for more podcasts. If you enjoyed what you heard today, please feel free to share, and we look forward to entertaining you again soon.